Okay, Boker Tov. Today's daf is Mem Gimel. We pick up in the middle bottom of Mem Betamud Bet. We pick up with we're dealing with this fascinating phenomenon of of the status of an Eved that's in this middle status. So partly we have an Eved that's half free and half owned by his master, and the question was, well, he worked for his master half the time and for himself half the time, but what's his personal status? For Isser, for example, he's caught between he can't marry a free woman or a slave woman. And what about even for monetary issues? If he's gored, so yesterday the Gemara said that who owns him? So the Gemara said that if it's a permanent sort of damage, rips off his arm, he's killed, then he's seen as being owned by both parties, and it's split between himself or his heirs, and we'll see about his heirs in a minute, and his master. If it's a temporary damage, his arm swells up, he can't work for a period of time, then if that's considered to be a form of injury and not just a form of payment for lack of labor, which wouldn't apply by an ox, but if it's a form of injury, then because that's not a permanent damage, that goes to the person whose day it is. Okay, so that was one level of discussion. When it happened, when the goring happened. And the other discussion was, how about somebody that is supposed to be freed? Mu'ukav get shichrur. And you have two scenarios of that. You have the guy that's half owned, but because we now rule like Beit Shammai, we force the master to free him. So that's one scenario. And maybe a more easy scenario, which focuses on what the issue is that, let's say, somebody renounced ownership over him, was mafkir him, or other types of cases we've seen before, sold him to Chutz La'aretz, where he has an obligation to free him. He no longer owns him monetarily. There's no ownership left. There's only the personal status issue left. What's his status? And the Gemara raised the question for Knas, and maybe the Knas still goes to the master, even though he's not owned. Now, if he's gored by an ox. Now, that I said was understandable because that's really, Knas doesn't have to be seen as payment for his value. It's a fixed amount. Maybe it's more a punishment for the person who is negligent with his ox and let his ox go and kill someone. And maybe it can go to this person who's the master, even though he doesn't own him. But the Gemara assumed that related to the idea of that would be the idea that if he was injured, there was a case of personal injury, that maybe the master, even though he didn't own him monetarily, would still collect personal injury if he was injured. And that seems very strange, because bottom line is he's not owned as property anymore by the master. Now we go on to issues that relate not directly to money and much more to a concept of status, where we can understand why this person might be, why there might be a question about this person who is no longer owned as money, but still has this status of Eved, why this might be relevant. So we pick up with Ibailahu, about 20 lines from the bottom, the line starting from the word Umidrash Chachamimhu. So Ibailahu, they raised the question. Ibailahu. Mu'ukav get shichrur, this slave who is awaiting a writ of freedom, and he's no longer owned monetarily. So ochel b'truma o eino ochel. Can he still eat truma if his master is a kohen or not? Kinyan kaspo amarachmana is the basis on which he eats truma because he is the property of his master, purchased by the money, the property of his master. The high love kinyan kaspo, and he's no longer property. Odioma, keeping them close to get shechlor, or maybe because he's lacking that writ of freedom, Kinyan Kasbo Karin Bay. We still call him property. And again, strange idea. Like we could still call him slave, we could still call the master, but this puzzle that emphasizes owned as property seems particularly inappropriate. On the other hand, maybe truma is fundamentally a question of, your relationship. You're part of the household, right? And you still maintain that status relationship, even though you're no longer property. Now, that's not the way the Gemara frames it. So let's anyway see the answer. So the Gemara says like this. Tosh Makam in here. The Amara Misharshia Kohenet Shinit Arev Vlada Bevlad Shifchata. A wife of a Kohen whose baby got mixed up with the baby of her slave. And you don't know who is who. By the way, another good evidence that we're not dealing with racial slavery. Okay? So anyway, you don't know who is who. So one of them is the slave and one of them is the master. And you don't know who's who. Okay, so not the master yet, the father's around. But anyway, they can both eat truma because you eat truma either as a kohen or as the slave of a kohen. Okay, they can't both work in the base of mikdash. And when they go to collect the truma from the threshing floor, they get one portion. Now that makes it sound like somehow there's like one portion allotted per Kohen's family. So you're either the Kohen or the slave. Between the two of you, you only get one portion. But that's actually not true. It's at the discretion of the person giving the truma how much he wants to give. And he can give all his truma to one Kohen's family. So what the Gemara says Chokin al Chelek Echad means is that they have to go together to collect the truma. Because the halacha is that a slave is not allowed to collect truma alone at the threshing floor because people will think he's a Kohen. So he has to go with his master, the Kohen. So they have to go together to collect truma. Now, if this mixture grows up, okay, so these two boys grow up, and now one of them actually, the father dies, and now one of them actually owns the estate. So one of them owns the other. You just don't know who is who.
They'll both eat truma though normally, right? Right. Not getting mixed up.
Yeah, but that's so yes, but so the point though is either that it's that's not the Kiddush. The Kiddush is either that they only get one portion between the two of them, or that's Pshat, or the way the Gemara explains it, they have to go together. So anyway, they can't go singly to collect the truma. Higdilu hata aroves, if they grow up, Meshachrin, so one of them now owns the other, because one of them now inherited the estate. Meshachrin zed zeh. So they give each other a writ of manumission. If you're the slave, I'm freeing you. If you're the slave, I'm freeing you. Great. Okay, fine. Now, so the Gemara says like this. Now, what do we think? We think that there's a case they're eating truma and they need to get a star shichrur, right? You got to free them or else you're going to be stuck with this situation. So the Gemara sees this as a case of mu'ukav get shichrur that eats truma. Of course, it's a bizarre case because they are currently fully owned as property, and there's no mandate to write one another a star shekel. It's just something they're obviously going to do to improve their situation. So the Gemara says like this. The Gemara says, Hachi Asher, what type of comparison is that? If Eliyahu would come and tell us this is a slave and this is the master, so then one would fully be the property of the other. There's just a suffix. The reality is one has a full status of full property. It's not relevant for us. We just don't know which is which. Here, he's not at all owned. He's not property at all. We're just waiting for Shtar Shichrur, so we don't know the answer. But the phrase Lavkin Kasbu Klal seems to indicate that the Gemara, that the logic would be that you would not eat Truma if we base it on the Pasuk of, which is focused on a sense of property. Okay,
it's
now
interesting is Eliyahu was going to come to me about personal status.
Well, that's true. It does.
Those are just a lot of questions.
Well, no, I don't know. But the whole Gemara about Eliyahu coming is about telling us who's a mamzer and who's not a mamzer. To be miyashiv yuchsin. What? We'll get to it. Okay, so Gemara says like this. Okay, now Ibailu. So that was the end of that discussion of Mu'ukav get Shichrur, which is such a fascinating phenomenon. About how do you sort of split the status. Thank you so much. Okay, so Ibailu. Next question. Where are we? Okay, now, normally, if my slave gets gored and dies, I collect knas, as we said. Now, that you would think is just a result of the fact that I happen to own him. Here's the question, though. Can I sell you my slave for the purpose of you collecting the knas if he gets gored? Like a future in the goring of my slave, okay? So, again, it's strange. Like there's a Gemara like this in Baba Metzia. If my object gets robbed, gets burglared, I collect the kefel. Can I sell you my object that you're entitled to collect the kefel if it gets burglared? You have no other right to it. It's totally my car, totally my object, but you've given me $1, sort of like a type of an insurance or something. I don't know. Or the opposite, the reverse insurance. That if it gets burglared, you're the one who collects the kefel. Or does that have to be a derivative? You have to be the owner in order to collect. You can't get a right to collect for that purpose. Okay, so can you sell your slave to somebody who owns him for the purpose of collecting the knas if he gets gored? All right?
It's like air rights.
I don't know what it is. Is he sold or not? You can ask this for a mayor who says you can sell something and you can ask this for the Rabbanan. When does Rabbi Meir say you can buy something that doesn't exist in the world? That's by buying the fruit of a palm tree, buying the future dates of a palm tree because you know that they'll eventually come into the world. Okay, that actually isn't the original teaching of Rabbi Meir, but he gets associated with that teaching. Anyway, here it's highly speculative. It's not a natural thing that he's going to get gored. It's based on outside events. It's not about a thing that comes from the slave himself. And even if he gets gored, you don't even know the person's going to wind up paying. Why? All the person has to do, since it's a knas, is admit that he did it, and then he's exempt from payment. So it's highly speculative. It's not a natural thing that comes from the slave. Maybe there's no way you can sell the future in collecting this knas.
I'm sorry. So
okay.
if a Rav kills the Eved, or someone kills an Eved, you just get away with it by saying I killed him?
Well, no, murder is different, but by goring of an ox,
Is
if
that
somebody
an
is
ox?
no.
Should she go even out an ox?
Yeah, that's by an ox goring. That's not by murder. Murder is the Torah Adarabah, not Komi Nakain, right? Okay, so that's the Chiddush of the Torah, that even though it's a slave, you can put to death. Okay, the Gemara says, you can ask going to the Rabban. When do they say you can't do it? You're trying to directly sell the fruit of the tree, and there's no fruit around. The slave is around and the ox is around, so everything is ready to happen. Now, the way it says that the ox is around, it makes it sound like somehow it's likely or it's concrete. But the real point this Tosa says is, when you can't sell a future, to mean I can't sell you the fruit that doesn't yet exist. But what everybody agrees I can do is I can sell you ownership in the tree for its fruit. You own the tree for the purpose of its fruit. I'm actually giving something to you right now. Concrete ownership in the tree for this aspect. So here, the Eved is sort of somewhat like that. It's not like I'm selling you the Knas. Then, of course, that wouldn't work. I'm selling you the Eved for the purpose of Knas. So maybe that works even for the Rabbanan, because you can sell a tree for the fruit. On the other hand, maybe that's such an absurd idea. The purpose of Knas is not a natural thing that comes from the slave. It's not a type of an ownership in the slave, and so on. So that's the question. Does it work or not work? And you could ask it, maybe even with Rabbi Meir, it shouldn't work. Maybe even with the Rabbanan, it should. On the one hand, it's an ownership in the slave himself. On the other hand, it's such a bizarre type of an outcome. So the Gemara says like this. So what's the story? Amar Rabbi Abba, says Rabbi Abba, Tashma come in here. Vilid bias. Okay, so this is Vilid Beito Hein Yochlu Belachmo by Truma. Those that are born into the house of a Kohen. So Vilid bias. Ma Tamadoma, what is this teaching you? What does that mean? That if you have a slave born into your house, he eats Truma. Why do I need to say this? Including Kesef Ochel, if somebody you purchased from the outside eats a slave, Vilid bias Ochosh, and certainly somebody born into the house. Ilukena Yityomer, if that was true, I would say, no, maybe I don't have the pasuk of kinyan kesef. I would say, what type of slave eats truma? A slave that has a value. So somebody born into the house also, if he has value, he eats. How do I know that a slave that is not even considered of any value sells for zero on the marketplace? Maybe because he costs more in his upkeep than he's able to produce. Okay, we'll see in a minute. The Gemara says maybe he's just, he's got some disease and whatever requires whatever. So he's, exactly. So maybe it's just, so there's nobody wants him. How do you know that that person is still considered to be my property and eats? If you're going to emphasize kinyan kesef. So Talmud Lomar, you lead bias, born into the household. Mikol Moko. Even if it has no value. Fine. Born into the household, whether he has value or doesn't, eats truma. But maybe a slave that I purchased focuses still on the aspect of value. And if he has no value, after I purchased him, something happened and he has no value, maybe he wouldn't eat. So what?
What's he supposed to do? He's going to die?
Yeah, that's a separate question whether I have an obligation to feed him. But the question is he entitled to truma? Truma. Right. This is all about eating truma. It links the two. The same way we established that one born into the household, even if he's of no value, eats, no monetary value. Same is true of a slave that I purchased. Anyway, the whole purpose of all that is to say that there's a slave that has zero value that eats truma, zero monetary value. And now the Gemara says like this: but 1 minute, if I can sell him for knas, then any slave, no matter how high upkeep or whatever he is, or no matter how disgusting the slave is, always has a market value. Somebody will pay a penny for him to
just I can sell him doesn't mean he's a market value. Nobody want to buy him.
So that's why Tosa says that, because the other question you could say is, well then, why are you asking the question whether you could sell him just for knas? Say every slave has a market value. Somebody could buy him and maybe it'll pay off in knas. But no. I don't want to take him into my household for the risk of knas. That I'm not willing to pay. But if I can buy him just for knas, you keep him in your house. Right, exactly. I just own him for the purpose of knas, so then I don't have to do anything. You have to deal with him. I pay you a penny, and I might get paid off $1,000. So if the Gemara is assuming that anybody would be willing to take that, that's a good bet. Okay, so if you could sell him just for knas, any slave, you could get some money for him. Somebody would take the bet. You pay 10 cents and maybe you get $10,000. Okay? Right? Somebody will buy him, don't take possession of him. You just have to buy him for knas. Who wouldn't want to do that?
I don't know. So, the way you're setting that up, it's not like the knas is $1,000.
Well, 30 shekels is a lot of money, and all you have to do is pay a pruta. All we have to do is get him.
How do you know how much the market value?
All we have to do is get him to be worth a pruta. We're arguing that he's not worth zero. So who wouldn't pay a pruta to maybe get 30 shekel? Now who knows?
Who would pay $1 to get $475 million?
Think how many people. Think how people pay $1 for a lottery ticket. The odds are against you, but a lot of people do. So it's a good payoff. So you will find somebody who will pay a pruta to maybe get 30 shekel. Yes.
I'm not understanding why the owner would do this. That's only the way the lottery works. Is you can sell $1 ticket to as many people as you want.
Right.
You can't do that here, right? So why wouldn't he just?
Well, you mean maybe the owner wouldn't be interested in selling it for that purpose?
His ability for the
right.
Right.
That's a good point.
It's a good deal.
Right.
It really is only to have a fruit.
Right. If people would want to take the risk, maybe the owner would want to keep him for that purpose. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I mean, look, it's sort of like the lottery. The owner is like Michael here and does the math and says it's not, that value is less than a prut. And there's somebody out there that doesn't have money that's willing to risk a pruta for maybe 30 shekel. Right. But you're right. Anyway, that's the Gemara's question. Okay, so the Gemara says somebody will pay a pruta for this guy.
Right, but the owner, the normative owner of this eved, not the guy who owns him for
yeah,
right. So he doesn't pay the scullim, right? It's the guy who owns
exactly.
So
I'm willing to sell him for a pruta for the knas because I know that the odds are so against that. That's not a good deal. And somebody else is saying, I'm a poor person. I'm willing to take a risk for a lousy pruta. I might get 30 shekel and he'll buy him for that purpose.
Yeah,
it's sort of like a lot.
Is he gets small money up front.
Yeah, right, exactly. All right. Anyway, moving on. So the Gemara says like this: Iga avda treifa. There's an eved that is a treifa that has an internal injury, and once he's a treifa, the halacha is that even if he's gored, you don't pay 30 shekel because the treifa is not considered to be somebody who's like.
We're talking about this case.
So that would be the case of somebody that's not shava klum, that you can't even sell for knas because you wouldn't collect knas on such an eved. So the Gemara says v'achazi l'mekim kamei, but I don't get it, says the Gemara. I mean, which is really the question we should have asked from the outset. How is an eved worth nothing? The eved can attend to you, take care of your needs, right? Why? So how could an eved be worth nothing? At least you could help you get your shirt on in the morning or something. So the Gemara says,
to stand in front of you.
Yeah, right, exactly. So in addition to being a treifa, he's somebody that is filled with polyps and disgusting to be around. So you don't want him to be anywhere in your presence. Okay, so that's the case. Fine. Moving on. So we don't know the answer of whether you can sell an eved just for knas. Ibailu. Going back to the half, which is the most fascinating case. And he decided to go ahead and to marry a free woman. Okay, the eved part of him is not allowed to, but is it binding? Because he's partially a free man, and maybe that's enough to create a binding kiddushin with this woman. Okay, maybe he's not allowed to actually then go ahead and consummate the marriage because he's still half eved and so on. But maybe legally the kiddushin is binding. Mahu. Now we have questions in general about two free persons, free men and free women. What happens if they try to marry one another and say half of me is married to you or half of you is married to me? So let's take a look. A normal free man said to a free woman, he's kachi l'chatzai, be married to half of me, mikudeshat, that works. And the Gemara says that the reason that does work when the man says it to the woman is because the man is kiddushin basically restricts the woman, not the man. That creates obviously monetary obligations on the man or whatever, but in a polygamous society, just because the man is married doesn't mean he can't marry another woman. So the man can be half married to the woman in the sense of he's not all committed to this one woman. He could marry another woman. Okay, but that brings another meaning to the better half, your other half. Right, exactly. Whereas a woman can't be half married to a man because she cannot be, the other half of her can't be married to another man. For a woman, marriage is exclusive. So the Gemara says,
is that the same thing as saying be married for me on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays?
No, that doesn't. He's kachi l'chatzai, married to half of me mikudeshes. So there it works. So here too, they let half of him be married to this woman. No, but maybe that's because the chazia l'kule. because in theory she could be married to all of them, meaning his whole status is that of a free person. And at the end of the day, she is fully married to him. It's just a way of speaking in that case. Okay. Here, she can't marry all of him. Half of him is a slave, and therefore, maybe we can't conceive of it that she's married just to the free man Shabo, and therefore, maybe the Kiddushin isn't binding because he's not fully a free person. Okay. And now let's flip it. Let's say a man who tried to say to a woman, be half of you married to me. If that doesn't work, for the reason I said, because for the woman it's exclusive. The shir bikinyano. I'm sorry, did I skip a line?
No.
Okay. The shir bikinyano. On the other hand, that's because he left something over, because he did not fully marry the full of her. And therefore, it's not considered a full kiddushin. Whereas here, there was nothing that he held back. The full amount of him that's able to be married to this woman is married to this woman. So what's the story? Okay, on the one hand, he didn't hold anything back. On the other hand, he's not his full status is not he's not a full free person, and therefore maybe he's not able to be married to her at all. So Tashma, come in here. Back to that case. The ox that gored and killed somebody that's half slave, half free person, pays half of the money to the master and half to the heirs of the kofer, because the half that he's a free person, that's not knas, that's kofer, right? Atonement payment, and that goes to the heirs of the slave. Now, the Marta Kiddush of Lav Kiddushin, but if you said that the slave can't get married, Yoshir Minore. How does he get heirs? How does the slave have heirs? Any children, any children he has from a slave woman are slaves, and and any children. I mean, whatever the assumption is that any children would not be considered to be his kids. Now, I want to get back to that in a minute. Why the Gemara says it's related to kiddushin, but let's see the Gemara's answer. Where does a slave have yorshim? So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Barava Kishaso Treifa. Okay, no, the ox actually didn't kill him. The ox just made him a treifa, okay, gave him a fatal injury, and therefore that's enough to collect, and he collects himself. Well, because he hasn't died yet. Python, I'm not dead yet. Okay, so I'm not dead yet, so he still collects his 30 shekel, but he's dying. Okay, so Umay Yorshav.
So you don't have to wait till he actually dies.
Well, that's this opinion. What does it mean that his heirs collect? Navshe, he collects. He's his own heir. I'm a Rav, state Shuvas B'dar. I have two responses. Chada, the Yoshev Ktani. It says his heirs. It doesn't say him. Kofer. We're talking here about an atonement payment, atonement for somebody's death. It's only after the guy dies. It's not enough. You don't pay once there's an injury, even if it's a fatal injury. No, but it says you pay his heirs. It means his heirs should be the ones to collect, but there are no heirs, so that half of the kofer nobody collects and the guy doesn't get wind up getting paid. Now, why is this based on
half
right? The owner of the ox only pays half knas. Now, why is this based on the idea of kiddushin? So Tosfos says, if anything, right, kiddushin is like stranger, because if you think about it, if he was married to this woman, the Ben Chorin Shabo, this woman is an Eshes Ish. The Eved Shabo, if you think of it, I mean, it's funny the way they sometimes describe it, is now having sex with a married woman that isn't his wife. So maybe it even creates mamzer problems. Why does it make it better that there's Chatzi mamzer? Why does it make it better that there's kiddush? It doesn't in any way. Things that are born from Isser, killed and born out of wedlock, Tosfos says, of course they're heirs. You don't need kiddushin to have legitimate children. Even a mamzer is an heir. You don't need legitimate children. So what's the relationship of kiddushin? So Tosfos says the relevance here of kiddushin is, why does a slave not have heirs? Why, if a slave has sex with a free woman, let's say a full slave, okay, with a slave woman you could say they're slaves. But I don't know, why if he has slaves with a free woman, are they not his heirs, right? And the answer is because basically you say that until somebody is a free person, they don't their family structure isn't recognized. That's the Gemara statement of Eved Enochias, right? So we don't recognize them look, in Europe, the whole idea of a bastard child, right, is that this person might be my biological child, but the law doesn't recognize me as my child, right? And I have to then legally define him as part of biology wasn't enough, right? Somebody had to be legally recognized as part of the family, and that doesn't happen by a child. Not talking halacha here, I'm talking about secular society. It didn't happen by children out of wedlock. So in halacha, a child out of wedlock is legally recognized, but a child born to a slave that refuses to recognize the family structure by slaves, and therefore the children are not seen of as legally part of the family, even though they're biological children. So Tosa says the same would be true if a slave had sex with a free woman. It might be his biological child. It's not because he did an isser that kid isn't his. It's because we don't recognize the family structure, and therefore we don't recognize it legally as his child. Okay, therefore, the Gemara says, if though we recognize that Kiddushin were possible by this half-slave, half-free person, the statement that Kiddushin is possible is a statement that we recognize a family structure, and therefore we'd be prepared to recognize the kid that resulted as his legitimate child. So that's a very interesting and fascinating point about the difference of heirs, which doesn't have to do with legitimacy, but has to do with a recognition of the family structure. Yes.
I'm just trying to draw a parallel. I don't know if you can do this, but if I say Ragla Shovehem Zuola, right?
Yeah. That's in the Gemara Kiddushin exactly about this case, which I'm not going to get to. Okay. Right. That's what the Gemara discusses by Mekadesh Chatzi Isha, but that's in Kiddushin, not by us. Okay. Yeah.
How does this relate to
the thanks for the count.
We had discussed sometime previously that if a Jew has a child with a non-Jew, the child's not his. Halachically his child, right?
Yeah. Well,
is it his heir though?
What? A Jew with a non-Jewish woman? It's not his heir.
Not his heir.
Right.
So
correct.
It's the
same idea.
Right.
The idea of being an heir
structure.
has to do with the question of the recognized family structure. Exactly. Okay. So now the Gemara says like this. Okay. Okay, I'm a Rabbi. The same way if a man marries half a woman, she's not Mikudeshes. That was the question. I'm sorry. If this, no. Now we're going to the flip. Now we're talking about the male slave.
But he's saying
No.
Which was the question.
Right.
Now he's saying it's
No. Listen. We dealt with the male slave. Okay, we didn't really know the answer to the male slave. Now Rava is making a statement about discussing a female slave. Okay, and he's saying we have a halacha in Kiddushin that if a man says to a woman, half of you is married to me, it's not Mikudeshes. Now that's actually debated over there, but Rav is saying, assuming that's true by two free people, that half a woman is not Mikudeshes, so he's now switching the question to the woman. Okay, we asked the question by the man, we didn't really resolve it, and now Rav is saying, at least by the woman, marrying a half slave woman, half free woman is not binding. It's like half a woman, and that's not binding. Okay? Darish Rabbi Bar Rav Huna. Says the same thing as Rava. So the Gemara says, Amali Rav Chizdas. Rav Chizdas said to me, Dami, how can you compare it? Hasam Shir B'Kinyano. In the case of half a woman, he held back. He didn't fully do kinyan as full as possible. He said half and he could have said all. Okay. Here, he didn't hold anything back. He married the entire woman as he was able. She was only half free, and maybe it should work. Okay.
It works with Eved Ivri, doesn't it?
No, that's not binding Kiddushin. So the Gemara says, "Hada ukim Rabbi Bar." I mean, she's muteris, but it's not Kiddushin. Hada ukim Rabbi Bar Rav Huna Amar Allah. So anyway, it's the exact same question as we asked before, right? Except here it's telling you that before the Gemara framed it in the abstract. Here you actually had somebody staking out a position. It doesn't work, and then the challenge was, wait, there's a difference. Here it's lo shir b'kinyano. Maybe it works better here. Okay, so the Gemara says, you know what? Then he reversed himself. And he explained, this stumbling block is under your hand. Very beautiful line. A person does not really stand on their Torah, really own their Torah, understand it deeply, unless you actually made a mistake. You go ahead and you said something public and you made a mistake about it, and then you have to retract and you have to revise it. You really, really learn it deeply after that, right? You don't want to make that mistake again, okay? So, and he reversed himself and he said, even though it doesn't work by a free woman, to marry half of a by a half slave woman, it does work. My time, in the case of free woman, you held back. And here you didn't hold back, and therefore, since you married fully this woman, it takes effect as much as it's able to. It makes effect on the half of her because you were not only doing like a half act, you were doing a full act, which was only able to take half effect. And if it works this way, presumably the same is true also, that a man who's half slave who marries a woman, presumably also if it's lo shir bikinyano, right? So presumably there too it would work for the half of him that's free. Although the Gemara never resolved it by the man, here at least Rava is saying that by the woman it does work.
What does that mean? What does that mean exactly? Shia kinyano, meaning hold back, meaning it's.
If I say to a woman, half of you is married to me, I'm not fully marrying her. I'm saying that I'm not fully committing to the marriage. I'm not doing a full act of marriage.
Right,
but if I say to a half slave, half free woman, I am marrying you. I fully want to marry her, but it's only half able to take effect because only half of her is free.
So that's shia kinyano, only half of it. Some of it is held back.
The first case. The second case, I wasn't holding anything back. It just wasn't all able to take effect.
So it's about his speech state. It's about his speech act.
The nature of the act. In one case, it was a half act. In the other case, it was a full act that only took half effect.
Okay.
All right. So now the Gemara says like this. Okay, my time. I'm a Rav Sheshes. So now we're going to Rav Sheshes. Though did not feel it was a mistake. Rav Sheshes says no, it doesn't work for a half to marry a woman. It doesn't marry a half slave, a half free woman. Now, if somebody whispers to you and says, Michael, he had Michael whispering to, like I have Michael whispering to me. 1 minute. But in the Parsha, in the Torah, it speaks about somebody that is a half slave woman, half free, and it says that she is married to an Eved Ivri. It's the Kiddushin is Chal if she's half free. I think he meant a normal slave woman. Anyway, if she's so that right, we were learning about the half slave woman, Vaftei lo niftasa, that's designated for an Eved Ivri, and the master sleeps with her, and there's a whole korban. And part of the problem is that because she's half free, she's half married to this Jewish slave. So you see that the Kiddushin is binding by a half slave woman. So the Gemara says, so how can I say it's not binding? So we said hamureset, that's married to an Eved Ivri, so you see it's binding. You see that there can be kiddushin with a half slave woman. And Merlot said to that person, Rabbi Yishmael, look, go take a walk over to Rabbi Yishmael, see what he says. He says that the case in the Torah of Shivcha Charufa is a slave woman that's completely a slave woman. That's not half free. That's 100% a slave woman. And nevertheless, even though it's 100% slave woman, the phrase he uses is Ureset Levet Ivri, who is married to an Eved Ivri. Now that can't happen. So we don't literally mean married. We mean that common law marriage, that they're living together as husband and wife. Okay, so according to Rabbi Yishmael, that she's a full slave woman. Can she have Erison? Can she have Kiddushin to a Jewish man? What must you say? When we say Mu'ureset, what do we mean? My Mu'ureset, Miuchedet, meaning that they're designated, they're living together.
He can do that, right? He's allowed to give her.
Yeah, he's allowed to say, sleep with this Eved Ivri, produce for me baby slaves. But it doesn't mean that there's a legally binding marriage here. So even if it's a half slave, half free, it doesn't mean that there's a binding Kiddushin. Just means that she's living with this Eved Ivri. Okay, so here's a position that half slave, half free cannot be married at all because it's not a full kiddushin. And the case in the Torah is not about Shivcha Knani, it's about Shivcha Charufa. There's no kiddushin at all, even if she's half free. And again, presumably, according to the approach that it works by a Shivcha Knani to be half married, presumably it works by a half Eved to be half married. If it doesn't work by a Shifra Kananis, I think it's still somewhat debatable if it should work by an Evet, because the half thing plays out differently, like we said before, by marriage. Yes?
Did you say he could have children with a full slave woman?
Yeah.
And would the children be his? A halach thing?
No, the children would be the masters. The children of a slave woman are slaves.
Oh, you're talking about a slave to have
yeah, the master had designated this Evet Ivri.
Yeah, right. Not the master sleeping with this.
Correct. Well, the sin is that then the master goes ahead and sleeps with her. Okay,
but I'm saying
but the basic setup is that the slave has been designated, the Evet Ivri has been designated to sleep with the Shifra Knanis to produce children.
Right, that right. But you said if the master slept.
Right, because that's the case in the Torah. Then the master goes ahead and sleeps with her, and you have to bring a korban as a result.
But what is that?
That's in violation. That wasn't.
What is that child halachically? He's not.
Oh, that would also be a slave. Yeah, the child of a slave is a slave. Of a slave woman is a slave.
Master's child.
Correct.
Halachically.
Correct. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. Okay, okay, so we haven't fully resolved that, but at least anyway, there's a significant opinion that a half slave woman could be married to could have binding kiddushin for at least for that part of her that's free. So if this woman now was married to Reuven, and then she was freed because of Niskach Shimon, and then so this woman managed to do the impossible. She managed to be half married to a man, half of her married to a man, and then she got freed. So this other half of her now is free to marry another man. So not actually, she got to actually sleep with two men, but at least maybe it should be a binding kiddushin. So half of her is married to Reuven. Then, right, if she was fully free, then she couldn't only be half married. But because she was half slave, half of her was married to Reuven. Then she got free. So the other half of her that isn't assigned to anyone or that isn't married, then she got married to Shimon.
Okay,
so she's half married to Reuven and half married.
Automatically.
We'll discuss that in a minute. But now we're playing with this possibility.
Oh, I thought that she had 1.5 husbands.
No, so Mesu Shnev. Now they happen to be brothers. Okay, Reuven and Shimon. Now, and then they both die. Mityabemes Levi. Now Levi can do Yibum. Reuven and Shimon neither could consummate the marriage because half of her was married to another man. Okay, but now that Reuven and Shimon have both died, Levi now has a mitzvah of Yibum coming two directions. So he does Yibum and everything Shalom Yisrael.
So
the
Einani Koreba, two brothers didn't do anything, and she then sleeps with the third brother.
There you go. The Einani Koreba Eishes Shnei Mason. And I don't call it the wife of two dead people, okay? Because if you remember, everybody remember Yavamas? We had a case where Reuven died. Shimon, the brother, did Mamar, which sort of made him in line to do Yibum, but he didn't yet do Yibum. And then made him somewhat connected to Shimon. And then Shimon died. And we said that Levi cannot do Yibum because this woman is coming to him from two brothers. Okay, if Shimon had done Yibum and then Shimon died, then she'd be coming to him from only directly from Shimon. The past with Reuven would have been erased. But because Shimon did Mamar, so Shimon sort of stakes his claim, but hasn't erased Reuven's relationship, and then Shimon dies, so she's coming to him from two husbands. He cannot do Yibum. So this case would seem to be even worse. Right, this case is she really was married to two husbands. So why is Levi allowed to do Yibum?
Can he do Chalitza, by the way?
Yeah. Depending on the case, yes. The Einani Koreba Eishes Shnei Mason. I don't call it the woman of two dead husbands. Why not? I mean, Mamish, you seem to be married halfway to each. So no, man of Shach. So now it's saying, I think, Michael, what you were saying. Because it doesn't work that Reuven dies and half of her gets married to Shimon. What happened when she was freed? What happened to the other half? Kidushin to Reuven, Kidushin to Shimon, Lav Kidushin. So when she got freed, either one of two possible things happened. Either the half of her that was married to Reuven expanded, so now that she's fully married to Reuven because there's nothing holding her back, holding that other half back. So then she was fully married to Reuven, and nothing happened when Shimon married her. That's one possibility. She's either fully married to Reuven. The other possibility is, no, maybe when she was freed, it's like her whole identity changed, and then she's not married to Reuven at all after she got freed. And then she's 100% married to Shimon. The Kiddushin to Shimon Kiddushin to Reuven Lav Kiddushin. So therefore, she's either all removed of his wife or all Shimon's wife. She is not half and half. Once she got freed, one of two things happened. Either Reuven's Kiddushin became 100% or it became 0.
But which did actually?
Okay, we don't know. We don't know, but we know she's not both.
We're not going to ask?
We are going to ask. We know the answer is we don't know. But at least in this case, we know she can do Yibum with Levi.
No, I mean, does Reuven need to go and do anything again?
Yes. If you wanted to marry her, you'd have to do another Kiddushin. So now we're going to discuss it directly. She got married to Reuven, and then she was freed, the other half of her. Okay, so that's now we're like doubling back and discussing, the discussion that was behind what we just said. What's the story? With Yosef Bar Chama Amar of Nachman, Poku Kiddushin Misha. When she got freed, she stopped being married to Reuven. Her identity changed. The original Kiddushin burst, and now she's able to marry Shimon.
So what would the point of Reuven doing this then?
He didn't free her, the master freed her.
Reuven marrying, what does he get?
I don't know. No, once there's no half of her that's a slave, the Kiddushin completes itself. Okay, I'm Reb Zera. Said Reb Zera, it makes sense like me. I'm glad he thinks it makes sense like him. Deceive, lo yum suki lo chufasha.
This is by the case of the Shifcha Charufa, that the man who sleeps with her, they won't die because she has not yet been freed. So, and we're assuming it's a half slave, half free woman. And it means it's not full adultery because she's only half married. Right? That's the case. So she's half married to another man because she's half freed. This other guy sleeps with her. And the Torah is saying you don't get put to death because it's not really fully adultery because you're only half married because she hasn't yet been freed. So had she been freed, Yumsu, they would be put to death, meaning had that other half of her been freed, then she would have been 100% married. The Kiddushin would have completed. Okay, so you see, look, it looks like once she's free, the original Kiddushin, the half Kiddushin, turns into full Kiddushin. Abai said to him, how about Rabbi Ishmael? Remember, he says that we're talking about a woman that's 100% a slave woman, and she's designated to an Eved Ivri. So there's no Kiddushin at all in that case. Does it mean as soon as she's freed, then it becomes a capital crime? I mean, she wasn't married at all, according to Rabbi Yishmael. How would Rabbi Yishmael explain the pasuk? It means had she been freed and married, then it would have been a capital crime.
Well, isn't it
okay?
obvious?
So yes, but that wasn't obvious to Reb Zera. So it's for Rabbi Yishmael, it's obvious that's what the pasuk means. They won't be put to death. It wasn't a capital crime because she wasn't freed. But being freed would make it a capital crime. I mean, she hadn't been freed and married. So that would be true even in the case of half freed, right? Hachanami, in your scenario, where she was half freed and half married, the pasuk doesn't mean had she been freed, she would have been 100% married automatically. It means had she been freed and remarried, and a new kiddushin had been done, then it would have been a capital crime.
The Kiddush is in reading the pasuk.
Exactly. Hachanami, here too, Shechufasha had she been freed, it doesn't mean that she'd been freed, that would have automatically made her 100% married. It means had she been freed, and then a new kiddushin had been done, then it would have been a capital crime. But we don't know what happens when she's freed and she was half married. Does she become 100% married or zero married? That we don't know. Okay, now we're going to finish this up. Amar Rav Huna Bar Katina, Amar Rav Yitzchak, Ma'aseh b'sha'achas shechetz yeshiva of chetz bas chorin. There's this famous case, woman half slave, half free. The kavus Rabbi v'asah bas chorin. And again, we were talking about freeing the man when he was half and half. Now we're talking about, and they forced the master to free the slave woman. So the Gemara says, now, until now, we've been saying, why do you free the man? Because he has to have the mitzvah of having kids. But does a woman have a mitzvah of having kids? So, come on. Is this like Rabbi Yochanan and Broka that says a woman is obligated in having kids, and that's why you force the master to free her so she can get married and have kids? Minhag Hefker Nagu, but that's not the reason. It was a completely different reason. Men were taking advantage of her. Because she wasn't a fully a slave and maybe fully a free person. Was the question about whether anyway did she have a full was she wasn't married to a free man, maybe she wasn't fully married to fully designated to a slave. She had no man to protect her, and people were there for taking advantage of her. And that's why they freed her, and it had nothing to do with this obligation to make sure that she would be able to be free and to have kids. All right, there we go.